Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Together Tuesday. This is part of our Parklife series, which is usually in the park, but we're doing Parklife from home today once again. I'm really excited about our speaker or Claire joining me today. Before we get started, I would just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet on today. I am on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I would like to pay respects to any First Nations people or any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders who might be listening or watching in today. And just acknowledge that this land was and always will be Aboriginal land. So today I'm really excited to have Claire joining me today. As you can see from Claire's background, she's a very sporty person, and yeah, thanks for joining us, Claire. How was your lockdown going today?
Not too bad. It started with a run this morning, so that's the best way I've been finding to just get into the groove with the lockdown and to keep a bit of a routine. It's definitely been helpful for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I find I kind of never want to get out of the house, but when I do, I always feel better afterwards. And I actually went for a little walk this morning before the drizzle, and it was kind of lovely, that smell of the rain coming in, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, I've been finding, especially compared to last year, I've been more consistent with sort of like keeping a routine around training, and sort of like having runs first thing in the morning definitely helps me in a sense that otherwise I feel like the days just merge into one and another. And I have, by the end of the week, I'm like, I don't even know. Is it Tuesday? Is it Friday? I don't know.
I don't know what day it is today either.
Yeah.
But the important thing is that we're here, and I'm so grateful to have you on board as a Parklife facilitator. Tell me a little bit about sort of your involvement with sport. You've mentioned just then that you're a runner. You obviously have a pretty fancy bike in the background. Where did it all sort of begin for you?
Yeah, I think I've always been like a pretty active kid. So I grew up in France on the northwest coast, so by the beach. So I guess I was pretty into all that stuff, swimming and surfing and sailing boats. But I also loved running. So at school, I was always like super keen to do the cross country and all that sort of things. Guess the school system is quite different in France to what it is here in Australia. There's not so much an emphasis on like sports. So, and maybe I had some pretty strict parents who were more about pushing my academic sort of results. So I didn't get to really do that much sport in clubs and all those sort of things. And I guess as a teen, I had my years where I was sort of searching myself as well, and that ended up with lots of partying, lots of drinking, not the most sporty sort of behavior. And I really rediscovered running in my 20s. Sort of like got into it and started to actually train properly. So doing proper run, bought like a book about running and starting to follow some training program and those sort of stuff. And then I moved to Melbourne in 2012, and I had been running mostly on my own all that time. And in 2012, I was in Melbourne, going to start my PhD. Knew no one at Melbourne Uni, so I just turned up at the track and started joining Melbourne Uni Athletic Club, and then met heaps of like friends who I'm still friend with. And that was that.
It's pretty powerful, isn't it? The culture that sport can really bring, and it must be twofold interesting for you from growing up in such a different culture and then coming and experiencing sport here in Australia. What has the sporting culture been like for you, and I guess around inclusion and fostering like a welcoming environment? Has that been your experience?
Yeah, I think so. And like when I joined Melbourne Uni Athletic Club, I started racing with so there was like a winter competition which was road and cross country, and I was amazed to see like how it just brought people of all different age. So there will be as a junior running before us, and then it will be like the senior up to like people who could have been my parents or even like older. And I thought, whoa, that's so cool just to see like people having a crack and a bit of fun and quite it just felt pretty grassroots, I guess, but still
Mm,
pretty serious. Like, Melbourne Uni had a few athletes. One is an Olympian. Like, there's some really like top level athletes, but at the same time, yeah, you'd be going to those races and it's just feel like a bit of fun, really. So
mm.
I liked that. It felt very welcoming.
And how do you think they managed that environment? That sounds like they've done a great job at creating a fun space and an optional competitive space. It feels like the ultimate club goal, right? Is to have
Yeah,
people working at their best no matter what level they're at, and also to
yeah,
be
exactly.
wanting to stick around and maybe have a bit of social time with people afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think at the time the club worked well for me because I was like a university student and um, quite dedicated to sport. I was younger as well, so there was a sort of distance I was interested in running. I guess as I got older, I had a few injuries as well, which kind of moved me away from the club, and um, I was looking for something different, which was more like a community of
Mm,
not just about running, but about people with sort of like similar interests.
mm,
A place where you can be visible and just be like completely you as well.
mm,
Um, Somehow, yeah, I guess I was out at Melbourne Uni, but also I felt like I was a bit of an outsider in that
mm,
in that regard. So I was sort of like looking for a club where this would be more the norm and just yeah, a bit more like a family, I guess.
mm. And we've spoken a lot about the Melbourne front runners, and
Yeah,
we've interviewed Linda. Sounds like a co-runner and a friend of yours as well.
yeah.
For those who might not have been to a inclusive club like the front runners, what's it like the first session when you get there and you're nervous?
Uh, it was seriously, it was just the nicest thing. So like, you turn up and people are not like even asking you about, your running history or whatever. They ask you about where you got your top and how cool your shoes look, and like, it's yeah, super super friendly. And I guess yeah, I found Linda is really great. Approach of like coaching where she will craft a session, but then it's sort of like giving you the option to push yourself as hard as you can, but also to take it easy. And if you don't feel like it after the warm up, you can just go for a jog. Like, there's always options to sort of like listen to your body and do what feels right.
Mm,
Um, and because it attracts people with really various sort of ability, I've always found someone to sort of tag along with.
mm,
So that's been really really nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just really not intimidating.
Mm.
Very very friendly.
I think that's important. I was just having a chat with someone else around how a lot of women and a lot of people in general of all genders from the rainbow community drop out of sport at a young
Mm,
age. They might not feel like they belong or find the right inclusive club or whatnot. And then to resume sport in your 20s when you feel like other people have got a foot up,
yeah,
it feels like you can't keep up with maybe what you perceive as being an acceptable limit. And what I'm really taken by is the front runners this club. It really feels like there is a level for everyone,
yeah,
and that you can kind of just rock up and give it a go.
yeah. And I think what the experience will also show is that, and I had this experience by joining a club in 2012, which was the very first sort of athletic clubs I ever joined. Um, like, I didn't know I could race. I didn't know I could do well. I didn't know I could run a fast marathon and all this sort of stuff. And then yeah, or that I could even deserve to have a coach. Like, and
Mm,
having a coach just take away so much pressure on yourself because
mm,
um, that their role is to just give you the motivation and tell you what to do.
mm.
So you don't have to go back to the book and to think and procrastinate about what you're going to do. They just tell you what to do and you do it. And it's
It's
very
nice.
good.
It's nice just to listen sometimes, isn't it? We have to make all
It
these
is.
decisions. You hear people talking about decision fatigue. I
Mm-hmm.
I have a fancy watch, not as fancy as yours, I'm sure, but it vibrates at me every now and again. And then I kind of do my little jog and then it
Yeah,
vibrates again and I do my little walk. What's the
yeah,
difference between having a human do that? Because I think like
yeah.
many people, I probably feel like I'm not good enough to have a running coach. And that I think is
Mm.
probably a weird concept, but I think it's quite a common belief.
Yeah, it's definitely a common belief, and I think it's a huge mistake because actually they're they've invested so much of their time and energy in learning about training and all the sort of stuff. They take away so much of the thinking, and like we are the worst judge of, we tend to just do too much too soon, and a coach is really good at sort of like preventing those injuries by sort of stopping you from doing too much too soon.
And
And I
what's,
guess
oh, sorry, go on.
yeah, I guess another thing I wanted to touch on is sort of like in Melbourne, I also discovered heaps of like trail running events that I started joining, and that sort of like really got me excited. I realized I was pretty good at them and that sort of thing, but I think that's also something where I try to be visible and open about who I am, because I found it's a universe that's very sort of white, male, straight, and which could do with a bit more inclusion and diversity. One of the things I'm quite passionate about is to sort of like advocate for more reduced entry for people with low income, because I think running in itself is a very it's a very cheap sport. Like you just need a pair of runners, and who cares if we're wearing some shitty shorts and shitty t-shirt? Like you should see some of the stuff I run in. But when race entries start to be $100 or more, I just think it's a real shame, because it's sort of taking away opportunities from people who could really do well and really have a good time and discover something that's quite adventurous, but at the same time on your doorstep as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think any barriers to participation not only hurt the individual but hurt the sport. And I think
absolutely.
we are seeing a lot more of a push. And I know that Vic Health are focusing on young people in their new vision and their new grants and whatnot. And particularly in this COVID or post-COVID, COVID normal, whatever we want to call it, we're all trying to envision, well, what does my movement pathway look like out of lockdown? And I think for a lot of people, moving with friends is perhaps going to be a lot more common than moving alone. We've done a lot of alone moving and I'm over it.
Yeah.
So I think that's right. What's the difference between like a race and a fun run? Because I like the sound of the fun run side of things. Tell me about those.
Yeah, or for some people, as soon as there's a start line and a finish line, it's a race. I guess, yeah, maybe like the textbook definition would be sort of like a race will involve some sort of prize money or something like, that help you qualify to some national event or international event, or that's got like, some sort of weight attached to it, where a fun run is more like a charity where your entry will go towards raising some money and those sort of things. So it's more open, I guess, in terms of the number of entrants and those sort of thing. But I still think that, yeah, there's an issue when fun runs start to cap around the $100 sort of entry. So like one thing I did, which I think was like I'm pretty proud of it, was to start park run around Parkville, so like around Princess Park. So that was in 2016 or 2015. So I had an injury at the time, so I could not run, so I needed a new hobby. And me and a friend, we started setting up park runs, which is a 5K event. In a normal time, it would happen every Saturday morning. It's always free, and you give people the opportunity to turn up at the same time every Saturday to run a 5K, which is timed, and they get their time. And beyond just the event of running, and you can run at whatever pace you want. You can push yourself as hard as you want, or you can just go for a walk. We had lots of people coming with their dogs or their pram and just walking around the park. But the community we built through that was really awesome. Just to see like people turning up week after week and sort of checking in on one another. If someone hadn't appeared for like a month, and then they would come back, people were like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while, have you been, and all sort of stuff. So I think that sort of stuff, that's what I hope to see come back as soon as we can after COVID, because I think that's like so important for people who, live alone, can't afford to participate in paid events, to have that opportunity to do something that's free and that's there. It's so big.
And speaking of those community events, it makes a difference when someone says good job or nice to see you back or we want to be
Exactly.
noticed. I think we're all leaning heavily on our grocery market clerks at the moment and our baristas
Yeah.
noticing us and seeing a
Yeah.
familiar face. So
Yeah.
yeah, we definitely want that in our sport. And thank you for signing up for Parklife and being a facilitator for that
Mm.
program as well. And I hope that we can absolutely transfer that fantastic culture through the Parkrun program. And the Princess Parkrun in particular is just such a fantastic
Mm.
sight to hear people talk about that run being so beautiful and so positive. And so thank you for all of the energy that you've put into that to be such a inclusive space.
Yeah, and I guess what I aim to do as well is sort of like just being visible and sort of like just also showing that I think where I grew up in a small place in France, like I had lots of internalized homophobia and all this sort of stuff, and just a very biased understanding of what homosexuality looked like and all this sort of stuff, and just like I guess I want kids to be able to see that well, you can be wherever you want. Like you don't have to subscribe to one hairstyle or to one type of clothes, or you don't have
Yeah.
to put yourself in a box. Like you can wear whatever you want. You can be masculine, feminine, what androgynous, whatever you want to be. Just
Mm,
be you, and just love whoever you want to love. Like it's completely fine, and do whatever sport you want to do. There's not like straight girl do this sport and
yeah.
like gay men do this sport. No, it's just do you. And I think that sort of stigma needs to be broken down. One thing I'm really pissed off with like running brand is that still very gendered sort of apparel
Mm,
that they create, sort of like the pink singlets and the blue singlets for the guys. I'm just like, come on, like it's 2021, like we need to move away from that stuff. So
yeah.
yeah, I think that's a conversation we can have through those like community event, is to sort of like just show that something different is possible.
Absolutely. And you're out there being that visible role model and being someone that
Mm.
perhaps you would have liked to have seen when you were a bit younger,
100%. Yeah.
getting into sport. I know I can definitely say the same. And it takes a long
Yeah.
time to unlearn the internalized biases
Oh, so much.
and internalized homophobia that you're like, hang on, that's not how I feel, but why is that in there?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah, like
sense of, yeah.
I was lucky to so my parents are vets back in France, and I was lucky to learn horse riding when I was quite little, and because my dad was mate with a pony club, and long story short, I used to be able to ride for free every Saturday. uh, but there was this thing in me where I was just like, I knew I was not like any of the other little girls, um, but
Mm,
I loved riding as much as I did. So it was like, yeah, I think, even if you're not like them, you can still be allowed to enjoy it as much, and you should be able to wear whatever you want and whatever
mm.
feels comfortable for you. And yeah, I think we need to remove that, and I hope, yeah, the next generation won't have to deal with all the sort of like internal thinking that we did, which is completely unnecessary.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I've spoken to people a lot about this. For example, for programs like Parklife
Mm,
that are inherently run by queer sporting companies like
yeah,
ours, and that welcome people with lived experience from the LGBTIQ community, and we need visible representation of diverse people and bodies and abilities and ethnicities
100%.
everywhere. So I kind of look at it as a yes and
Yeah.
approach, that we want parkrun, we want front runners, we want everyone to enjoy the way they move their body, to do it in the way that's best for them, to wear the clothes that feels comfortable for
Mm,
them, and to make it accessible based on different needs like socioeconomic status and people's abilities and all of those sorts of things. So it
yeah.
feels really fantastic to be, I guess, part of that. And I can see that you've got your finger in a few pies, and you're really kind of championing
Yeah.
forward that approach. And I can just imagine, and I know we've done a session together, and watching you lead a session, and you definitely lead with others, and it feels really nice, I think, to be a part of that I can enjoy it with you and not sort of be
Mm.
told by you. It's a very different approach, and I think it's quite special to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I think we all have like, a bit of PTSD from our old like gym teachers and sport teacher at school, like, with a whistle in one hand. And it's like, I was the kind of kid who in year 12 would, skip sports or hide in the back to smoke cigarettes. So I guess now I run marathon, so go figure.
What a full 360. Well,
There you go.
oh my goodness. Well, Claire, thank you so much for
No,
joining
pleasure.
us today. It's been fantastic to talk to you about sport and inclusion. And for anyone who might be interested in checking out Parkrun or Front Runners or Parklife, we'll leave a few details below.